Last night, I watched my own father, sit across from another woman, smiling like he had never been happier, his fingers laced tightly with hers like they belonged together. I was standing 10 feet away, frozen beside the hostess stand, holding my breath while he leaned in closer to her, whispering something that made her laugh, soft and intimate, like this wasn't new. I didn't feel confused. I felt replaced. In that moment, every memory I had of him being loyal, steady, untouchable, shattered quietly in my chest. So I did the one thing a daughter should never have to do. I raised my phone, hit record, and sent the video straight to my mother. If this story speaks to your heart, only if it truly resonates with you, take a moment to like, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from and what time it is there. I read every single one. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 29 years old, and that night at a crowded restaurant was the moment everything I thought I knew about my family fell apart. Let me take you back to where it all began. My dad, David Carter, was the kind of man people trusted without question. 54 years old, 6 feet tall, always in pressed shirts, even on weekends, the type who shook hands firmly and looked people straight in the eye. Growing up, I never once heard my parents raise their voices at each other. Not once. My mom, Linda, used to say, "Your father doesn't believe in breaking things he promised to protect." And I believed her. God, I believed her so completely, it never even crossed my mind that I should question him. That's why when I walked into that restaurant last night, everything felt normal at first. The place was packed, a Friday night crowd, the low hum of conversations blending with clinking glasses and the smell of grilled steak hanging in the air. I was meeting a friend for dinner. Nothing special, just another night. I gave the hostess my name, glanced down at my phone, and then I saw him. He was seated near the back, in a booth by the window. At first, I didn't even register what I was looking at. It was just my dad, out for dinner. That's what my brain told me. That's what it wanted to believe. But then I saw his hand. His hand wasn't resting on the table. It wasn't holding a menu. It was wrapped around hers, fingers interlocked. Not casual, not accidental, intimate, permanent. My stomach dropped so fast I had to grab the edge of the counter to steady myself. I remember blinking, like maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me. Maybe this was someone who just looked like him. But no, it was him. Same watch, same jacket, same quiet smile he used to give my mom across the dinner table. Except now, it wasn't hers anymore. The woman sitting across from him looked to be in her mid-40s. Well-dressed, confident, the kind of woman who knew exactly where she belonged. And in that moment, it was clear she belonged right there with him. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I didn't need to. The way he leaned in, the way she touched his wrist, the way they looked at each other like the rest of the room didn't exist. That wasn't a first date. That wasn't casual. That was something real. Something ongoing. Something my mother didn't know about. My chest tightened. Not anger. Not yet. Just this heavy, suffocating disbelief. Because if this was true, then everything I grew up believing about my family was a lie. I told myself to walk away. I told myself it wasn't my place. But my hands weren't listening. They were already moving. I pulled out my phone, opened the camera, zoomed in slightly, just enough to make sure there was no doubt. My fingers were shaking so badly I had to hold the phone with both hands. For a second, I hesitated. Just a second. Then I hit record, because if I didn't, no one would believe me. And deep down, I didn't even believe it myself. Not yet. But I was about to. And what I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that the moment I pressed send, I wasn't exposing a betrayal. I was walking straight into something much bigger than I ever imagined. I watched the message bubble turn from blue to delivered, then to read, and my chest tightened as if I had just crossed a line I could never step back over. For a few seconds, nothing happened. The restaurant noise came rushing back in, plates clinking, people laughing, waiters calling out orders, and it all felt wrong, like the world was moving forward while mine had just stopped. Then my phone buzzed. One message, from my mom. "What is this?" 3 words. No punctuation, no emotion. That scared me more than anything. I stared at the screen, my fingers hovering, trying to figure out how to respond, how to explain something I did not even fully understand myself. I typed, erased, typed again, then finally sent, "I am at Ridgeway Grill. He is here right now." The typing bubble appeared almost instantly, disappeared, then appeared again. I could picture her reading it, her face going still, her mind catching up to something it had never prepared for. Another message came through. Stay there. That was it. Not a question, not disbelief, just a decision. My heart started pounding harder, louder, like it was trying to warn me. I looked back toward the booth. My dad was still there, still calm, still smiling, like nothing in the world had shifted. The woman across from him leaned forward slightly, her hand still resting near his, and he did not pull away. He did not look guilty. He did not look nervous. He looked comfortable. That was the part that didn't make sense. If this was wrong, if this was a secret, then why did he look so completely at ease, sitting in the middle of a packed restaurant where anyone could see him? I swallowed hard, my throat dry, and stepped away from the hostess stand, moving slowly toward the bar area where I could watch without being obvious. I slid onto a stool, ordered water I did not plan to drink, and kept my eyes locked on them through the reflection in the mirror behind the liquor bottles. Every small detail felt amplified. The way he nodded when she spoke, the way she smiled like she already knew him, really knew him. This was not a stranger. This was not new. My mind started racing backward, searching for signs I had missed. Late nights, extra phone calls. The way he had been quieter lately. I had explained all of it away at the time. Work, stress, age, life. Now it all rearranged itself into something darker, something I did not want to name. Another buzz. My mom again. I am on my way. I checked the time. 12 minutes. My stomach dropped. This was happening too fast. I glanced back at them, panic creeping in for the first time. I had expected denial, an argument, maybe even silence. I had not expected her to show up, not like this, not here, not in front of everyone. I shifted in my seat, suddenly aware of how public everything was about to become. People were celebrating birthdays 2 tables over. A couple was taking selfies near the window. A family with 2 kids was sharing dessert behind me. None of them had any idea that in less than 10 minutes, something was about to break wide open, right in the middle of this room. I picked up my phone again, staring at the video I had just recorded. My hands were still shaking. For a brief second, doubt slipped in. What if I was wrong? What if there was something I was not seeing? But then I looked up again and saw his hand still wrapped around hers, steady, certain, like it belonged there. The doubt disappeared as quickly as it came. No, I was not wrong. I could not be. And yet, something about the way he sat there, so calm, so unbothered, made a small voice in the back of my mind whisper something I did not want to hear. This does not look like a man who is hiding. I pushed the thought away immediately, because if he was not hiding, then what was this? And why did it feel like I was the only one who did not understand what was really happening? The door opened, and I felt it before I saw her, like the air in the room shifted direction all at once. My mother walked in with a kind of stillness that did not belong in a place like this, her coat still on, her eyes already scanning the room like she knew exactly what she was looking for. She did not hesitate. She did not look confused. She walked straight past the hostess, past the line of waiting guests, past the bar where I sat frozen, and for a split second, her eyes met mine. She did not ask me anything. She did not need to. She had already seen enough. My pulse spiked so hard it felt like it was in my throat as I slid off the stool and followed a few steps behind her, not close enough to stop her, not far enough to pretend I was not part of this. Every step she took toward that table felt louder than it should have been, like the entire restaurant could hear it, even though no one had turned yet. My dad was still talking when she reached them. He had not noticed her. Not yet. The woman across from him did. Her eyes flicked up first, landing on my mother with a sharp kind of awareness that did not look surprised. It looked prepared. That was the first crack. The first thing that did not fit. Then my father turned, and everything in me braced for impact. I expected shock, guilt, panic, anything. But what I saw instead made my chest tighten in a completely different way. He did not flinch. He did not pull his hand away immediately. He just looked at her, steady, calm, like he had been expecting this moment all along. My mother stopped at the edge of the table, her hands at her sides, her face unreadable in a way I had never seen before. She looked at their hands first. still touching, still connected. Then she looked up at him. There was no yelling, no accusations, just a quiet, controlled voice that somehow cut deeper than anything loud ever could. "David," she said. That was it, just his name. The woman across from him slowly withdrew her hand, but not in a rushed or guilty way. It was deliberate, almost respectful, like she understood exactly what this moment was. My dad stood up then, finally, but there was no panic in his movements. Only something measured, careful. "Linda," he said just as calm. Around us, people were starting to notice. Conversations softened, forks paused mid-air, the kind of silence that spreads without anyone announcing it. I felt every pair of eyes inching closer, even if they were pretending not to look. This was becoming something public, something exposed. And suddenly I was very aware that I had set all of this in motion. My mother glanced briefly at me, and there was something in her eyes I could not immediately place. It was not anger, not yet. It was something heavier, something that made my stomach twist. Then she looked back at him. "Do you want to explain?" she said, her voice still steady. "Or should I?" That was the second crack, because that was not the question of someone who had just been blindsided. That was the question of someone who already knew more than I did. My mind stumbled over that, trying to catch up, trying to understand what she meant. My dad exhaled slowly, like he had been holding something in for a long time. He glanced at the woman beside him, and for the first time, I saw something shift in his expression. Not fear, not guilt, something closer to resignation. Then he looked at me, directly at me. And in that moment, I realized something that made my blood run cold. He was not surprised to see me there, not even a little. It was like he had known I was watching, like he had known I would do exactly what I did. The room felt smaller. The noise faded into this distant hum as my thoughts started colliding into each other. None of this was happening the way it was supposed to. None of this matched the story I had built in my head. The woman stood up slowly, smoothing her jacket, her posture composed, her gaze moving between my parents and then settling on me. There was no embarrassment in her face, no apology, only a quiet kind of certainty that made everything feel even more off. "I think," she said gently, her voice calm but firm, "we should sit down." And that was the moment it hit me. This was not an affair being exposed. This was something else. Something planned. Something I had just walked into without understanding a single piece of it. And somehow, I was at the center of it. No one moved for a second, like the entire table was suspended in place, waiting for something invisible to settle before anyone could breathe again, and I realized I was the only one who did not understand what that something was. My mom pulled out the chair across from them and sat down slowly, her movements controlled, deliberate, like she had already decided exactly how this was going to unfold before she even walked in. I stayed standing at the edge of the table, unsure if I was supposed to sit, unsure if I even belonged there anymore, my phone still in my hand like evidence I no longer knew how to explain. My dad glanced at the empty seat beside my mom, then back at me, and for the first time his voice shifted slightly, softer, but not weak. "Emily," he said, "sit down." It was not a request, it was not a command. It was something in between, something that carried weight I could not ignore. My legs moved before my brain caught up, and I slid into the seat beside my mom, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure they could all hear it. The woman remained standing for a moment longer, watching us. Then she reached into her bag and placed a thin leather folder on the table in front of her before taking her seat again. That was the third crack. Affairs do not come with folders. Affairs do not look like meetings. My chest tightened as I looked between them, trying to piece together something that made sense, something that matched what I had seen, what I had recorded, what I had believed just minutes ago. "Emily sent me a video," my mom said quietly, her eyes still on my dad, not on me. There was no accusation in her tone, just a statement. My stomach dropped. Hearing it out loud made it real, in a way it had not been before. My dad nodded once, like he had expected that too. "I figured she might," he said. That sentence hit harder than anything else so far. Figured she might, like I was predictable, like this entire situation had been anticipated. I felt heat rise in my face, a mix of confusion and something sharper, something closer to embarrassment, but I did not understand why yet. The woman opened the folder and turned it slightly so it faced us, her movements calm, precise. Before we go any further, she said, her voice steady, professional in a way that immediately shifted the atmosphere at the table, I think it is important that Emily understands why we are here. My pulse stumbled over itself. Why we are here. Not why you are here. Not why he is here. We. My gaze snapped to my mom, searching for something, anything that would anchor me, but she just sat there, hands folded, watching the folder like she had already seen what was inside. That was the fourth crack. She knew. She knew something I did not. My fingers tightened around the edge of the table as the woman slid a single document forward. I did not read it at first. I just stared at the header, my mind refusing to process the words. Legal, official, structured in a way that had nothing to do with dinner or secrets or betrayal. My dad leaned forward slightly, his voice quieter now, but heavier. We were going to tell you tonight, he said, just not like this. A cold feeling spread through my chest, slow and heavy, like something inside me was starting to sink. Tell me what? I asked, and my voice sounded smaller than I expected, like it did not belong to me. No one answered immediately. The woman glanced at my dad, then at my mom, as if confirming something without words. Then she looked at me again, her expression softening just enough to make it worse. Emily, she said, my name is Rebecca Hayes. I am your family's attorney. The word landed like a stone in my stomach. Attorney. This was not an affair. This was not even close. My thoughts scrambled, trying to catch up, trying to rearrange everything I had seen into something that fit this new reality, but nothing aligned. Nothing made sense. My dad exhaled slowly, his eyes finally holding mine in a way that made it impossible to look away. What you saw, he said, was not what you think. And for the first time since I walked into that restaurant, I believed him. That was the part that scared me the most. The word attorney did not settle in my mind the way it should have. It echoed instead, repeating itself in a loop that did not match the scene I had just witnessed. Not the hand-holding, not the quiet smiles, not the intimacy I thought I saw. And yet somehow it explained everything and nothing at the same time. I stared at the document in front of me, my eyes scanning the page but not actually reading it. The lines blurring together as my brain struggled to keep up with a reality that was shifting too fast. I do not understand, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, and for the first time since this started, I felt something crack inside me, not anger, not betrayal, something closer to fear. Rebecca did not rush to fill the silence. She let it sit, heavy and deliberate, before gently tapping the top of the document with her finger. This is a trust agreement, she said, her tone calm, measured, like she had explained this many times before, just never in a moment like this. Trust. Another word that did not belong to the version of events I had created in my head. My dad leaned back slightly, his eyes still on me, not defensive, not apologizing, just steady. We have been working on this for a while, he said. Months. The timeline shifted again. This was not something impulsive. This was not something secret in the way I thought. This was planned, structured, deliberate. My gaze snapped to my mom, expecting confusion, anger, anything, but she simply nodded once, confirming it. I knew, she said quietly. 2 words, soft, final. My breath caught in my chest. Of course she knew. That was why she had not reacted the way I expected. That was why she walked in without hesitation. That was why she looked at them like she was stepping into something already in motion. I felt a wave of heat rise up my neck, spreading across my face, because suddenly the position I thought I was in, the one where I was exposing something hidden, collapsed completely. I was not revealing anything. I was interrupting it. Rebecca turned another page, sliding it closer to me, and this time my eyes caught on something specific. My name, not just once. Repeated, structured, official. My stomach dropped. Why is my name on this? I asked, and my voice sounded sharper now, edged with something I could not control. My dad exhaled slowly, his fingers resting on the table, no longer reaching for anyone else, no longer creating that image I could not get out of my head. Because this is about you, he said. The words landed heavier than anything else so far. About me. Nothing about this felt like it was about me. I was not part of that table. I was not part of that conversation. And yet suddenly, I was at the center of it. Rebecca leaned forward slightly, her expression softening again. Not out of pity, but out of understanding. Your parents have been restructuring their assets, she explained, her voice steady, clear, each word precise. Property, investments, long-term care provisions, medical directives. Each phrase added another layer I had not even considered, building something far more complex than the simple narrative I had created in my head. And you, she continued, her eyes holding mine, are the primary beneficiary. The room tilted, not physically, but enough that I had to grip the edge of the table again just to ground myself. Beneficiary. That word carried weight, responsibility, finality. It was not something you casually discussed over dinner. My thoughts raced, trying to connect the pieces, trying to understand why this was happening now, why it had been kept from me, why I had walked into this like an outsider. Why would you not tell me, I asked. And this time the question was not accusatory, it was something else, something more vulnerable. My mom finally turned to look at me fully, her eyes softer than they had been all night. Because you were not supposed to find out like this, she said. My dad nodded slightly, then added quietly, and because we were not ready for you to ask the questions that come with it. Questions. There were too many already. But one stood out, louder than the rest, pressing against the inside of my chest. What changed? I asked, my voice barely steady. Why now? The silence that followed was different this time. Heavier, more fragile. My dad looked down at the table for the first time, just for a second, before meeting my eyes again. And when he spoke, his voice carried something I had not heard before. Not calm, not control. Something closer to truth. Because time is not something we can assume we have anymore, he said. And just like that, everything shifted again, deeper than before, into something I was not prepared to face. It has been 3 months since that night, and the quiet that followed did not feel empty the way I thought it would. It felt different, clearer, like someone had finally turned the lights on in a room I had been walking through in the dark my entire life. My dad started treatment 2 weeks after that dinner, and for the first time, I began to understand why everything had been happening behind closed doors, why the conversations were careful, why the timing mattered so much. It was never about hiding something from me. It was about protecting me from something they were not ready to say out loud. I used to think love looked like transparency, like telling everything all at once. But now I know sometimes love looks like silence, like carrying the weight until you know someone else is strong enough to help you hold it. I still think about that moment in the restaurant, about how quickly I judged, how easily I believed the worst, and how confident I was in a story that was never true. And I have learned something I wish I had understood sooner. Not everything you see is the full truth, especially when it comes to the people who have spent their lives trying to protect you. If you are listening to this and you feel like someone in your life has hurt you, or disappointed you, or broken something you believed in, I want you to pause before you decide what it means. Sometimes the story is deeper than what you can see in a single moment. Sometimes people are fighting battles they have not found the words to explain yet. And sometimes the truth is not betrayal. It is fear. It is love. It is time running out. I'm still learning how to sit with that, how to forgive myself for the assumptions I made, and how to show up for my family in a way that is stronger, more patient, more open than I was before. If you have made it this far with me, thank you, truly. Because stories like this are not easy to tell, and they are not always easy to hear, but they remind us that we are not alone in the way we misunderstand, in the way we grow, in the way we try to do better the next time. And I would really like to know, have you ever been completely wrong about someone you love? And how did that moment change you? If this story spoke to you, only if it truly resonates with your heart, you can stay, you can listen, you can be part of this space where we figure things out together. My name is Emily Carter. I am 29 years old, and the lesson I want to leave you with is this. Sometimes the truth is not what you see, it is what you are willing to understand.